And we're back, folks, right here on the Sports Talk Nation. Michael Cohen here with you as the New York Mets complete the sweep. They bring out the brooms, and they find an ace as well. Let's get into it right here as the Mets take out the Philadelphia Phillies 6-0 at Citi Field on Wednesday evening as they have swept that series, and all of a sudden that deficit is now trimmed a little bit more. It's now down to just 4 games. That's all that's separating these two teams in the N.L.East. As I said last night, if you missed the video, it's certainly in the description below. I'll share it with you there. You can also find it up here as well. But as I said last night, after the Mets won in walk-off fashion 6-5, there is a bit of a vibe that's now back with this team, and you're starting to feel it. And now it's starting to feel like this team is not only in the thick of a pennant race. They have a chance if this pans out, especially in the pitching department with the young guys, meaning Nolan McLean and potentially Jonah Tong. This could be a very scary team come the postseason. We'll see. We got a long way to go. But right now, the Mets only 4 back of Philadelphia. They got some, again, more good news out of L.A. as the Dodgers looks like they're going to take out the Reds again. So the Mets lead over Cincinnati will now be 4.5 games for the last wild card spot. So look, now with 29 games to go, the mission is clear. Yes, you want to make the playoffs. That's the number one goal for the Mets. But now you have the Phillies right in your sights. Season series advantage. They have now won 7 out of 9 with only 4 more games to play against Philadelphia in about a week and a half down in Philadelphia. No matter what happens down there, the Mets win the season series. So even if the two teams are tied, let's say come the end of the season, the Mets would have the head-to-head advantage, and that could end up giving them the division in that case. But the more important thing to come out of this game on Wednesday night is this. The Mets have themselves an ace. And when he made his debut, Nolan McLean, a couple weeks ago against the Seattle Mariners, I was like, hey, look, this is a good performance. Nice to see. Nice to see somebody go out there, shut down an opponent. We had gone through so many weeks and games where the Mets starting pitching had struggled mightily to get through the 3rd, 4th, 5th inning. And it was nice to see Nolan McLean pitch into the 6th inning. I said, let's wait and see what happens. And now, lo and behold, we're now 3 starts in. This guy is 3-0, a 0.89 ERA. And he is the first Mets pitcher to win his first 3 career starts. First time. You could talk about Tom Seaver. You could talk about Nolan Ryan. You could talk about Doc Gooden. You could talk about Ron Darling. You could talk about Matt Harvey, Jacob deGrom, Noah Syndergaard. None of those guys won their first 3 starts to start their Met career as rookie. None. And that's what Nolan McLean has done. And he absolutely baffled the Philadelphia Phillies over 8 innings. 8 incredible innings of 4-hit baseball. 6 strikeouts, no walks. That's the biggest stat right there. And 95 pitches. And I'm sure if he were asked to, I'm sure he probably could have finished the game if they wanted him to do that. But at 6-0, 8 innings of incredible baseball, incredible pitching. That's all you ask. And all of a sudden, the feeling, as I said, has changed for this team because now they have a guy who could be not only their stopper, but to be their guy, to be potentially, quote-unquote, an ace. And for months, we have spoke about how the Mets didn't have an ace in this rotation. And, what would they do at the deadline? Would they try to find a starting pitcher? I thought maybe they would go kick the tires on Jacob deGrom, try to bring him back from Texas. Of course, that never transpired. Well, they found something potentially maybe better. Certainly younger than a Jacob deGrom, but a guy who, is trying to fit in. I hate to say it now because it's too early, obviously, in the first 3 starts, but a guy who could, if he keeps this going, could end up in that conversation at some point down the road. But it's nice to see. Now, the Mets are going to have Jonah Tong, as I just mentioned, pitching on Friday against Miami. if he pitches well or certainly starts to get comfortable over the next month, um, you could have a scenario where the Mets go into the postseason all of a sudden with two guys that they feel comfortable with at the top of this rotation, both who are rookies. And if you asked me a few weeks ago, that didn't look like it was going to be possible. So that's what's changed this season. And I think even Ron Darling mentioned that at the postgame. He says, if this Mets season goes on a run that's special, okay, then we're going to look back at the day Nolan McLean made his debut on August 16th and say that's when the season turned around. And that could happen. But it's really starting to get in gear right now. 6-0 Mets victory. The offense continues to click on all cylinders. Brandon Nimmo 3 hits, that after the game-winning hit he had last night. Mark Vientos, man, oh man, this guy's red hot. Now a 10-game hitting streak. 2 more hits, a home run, a 2-run bomb, 3 RBIs. As he has just been on absolute fire. That's now 6 home runs and what is it? Like 17 RBIs, something like that. I think I've lost count since in the last 10 games. He has just been incredible during this stretch for New York. And the Mets have been waiting for him all year to get going. And now he is clicking. He is clicking in the middle of this lineup. And it's making a difference. And you have Brett Beatty, who's also been hitting well lately. 2 out of 4 today for the New York Mets. So it's not just a scenario where you're having just Lindor hit or just Alonso hit or you have Soto hitting and nobody else. Now everyone is clicking and hitting for the Mets right now as they are now moving along into the schedule. And it's going to be interesting dynamic here for the next week and a half. They get the Miami Marlins, who've been a pesky team coming into Citi Field this weekend. And then it's the big road trip. They get Detroit, Cincinnati, the team that's been chasing them in the wild card, and then back to Philadelphia, potentially to get a little bit closer to the Phillies in the N.L.East. So, man, we're heading into September, and it feels like postseason baseball outside weather-wise, and it's starting to feel that way, certainly, by the performance of the New York Mets. Now, even the Yankees got to be feeling good. They're in the underbelly of their schedule. They're playing bad teams, the Nationals. They get the White Sox coming up this weekend. They're taking care of business, okay? They sweep the Washington Nationals 11-2. The game was over in the third inning. Yankees scored 9 runs in the third inning. Game over at that point. 6 home runs for the Yankees, including, of course, Judge, Ben Rice, Clay Bellinger, the usual suspects, if you will, for the Yankees to hit home runs against the Nationals as they get to 73 and 60 and are, well, very comfortable right there in the mix. Certainly look like they're going to be a lock, if not close to a lock, for the postseason. As I take a look at the standings right now, their percentage is now at 98% to make the playoffs. Still 4.5 back of the division, but still in a good position to at least make a wild card. They're beating up the bad teams, and that's what you got to do right now if you're the Yankees. Beat up these bad teams like the Nationals and now the White Sox coming up this weekend. That's all they can do. When will the schedule get a little more dicey, if you will, as far as facing top competition again? It's going to happen in very quick order here because after this White Sox series in Chicago, Yankees head to Houston. They get Toronto coming into the stadium September 5th through the 7th. Detroit comes in, and then they go to Boston. So there's going to be a stretch here early to mid-September. That's going to be very interesting for the Yankees as they try to make their way into the postseason. We'll get a feel of where they stand because all those teams, Houston, Toronto, Boston, Detroit, are going to be in the playoffs with them. And we'll see how the Yankees match up at that point. But sweeps for both teams. For the Yankees, they look taking care of business. For the Mets, man, it was a heck of a step. Another step in making the fans and injecting life into this team. The fans are starting to feel it at Citi Field. You could see it. They now have potentially an ace in Nolan McLean. And if there's going to be a savior of that season, it could be this guy, number 26. Ace number 1 now, potentially, for the New York Mets. Like and subscribe. We'll talk to you next time right here on Sports Talk Nation.